Hi, everyone. Welcome back to Bad Mothers and our very first video podcast episode, which I'm really excited to share. And with me today, I have Asha Dore, who is a speech pathologist, editor, and an extremely prolific writer. Her essays and reported features have appeared in Vogue, Washington Post, McSweeney's, New York Magazine, and lots of other places. She's also the founder and host of the literary interview podcast, Totally Biased Reviews. But she's here today to talk to me about estrangement and motherhood and lots of other things that go along with those topics that we know so well here on the Bad Mothers podcast. So, Asha, welcome. Thanks for being here.
Yeah, thank you so much for inviting me. This is fun.
You wrote for The Cut about deciding to cut off contact with your mother after you witnessed the potential harm to your children. Can you tell us about that moment that you came to that decision?
Yeah, I feel like that it's an unfortunate thing because, there were some comments that I actually agreed with on that essay where people were like, well, why did you wait until you saw your kids being harmed? Like, why don't I matter? And that's sort of true. It just didn't occur to me to make that decision for myself until I saw it externalized with my son, and just like seeing the way that my mom has a kind of strange sort of go-to where she tells people that they're sociopaths and that they don't know how to love her. That's like her deal. And when she started to do that with my son, who has autism and ADHD, I just like the potential for harm was so big. And it just became like an immediate like emergency situation. Like, that was like, what have I been doing all this time, letting her be around my children or myself until I was in my late 30s.
Yeah, yeah. It sounds like there was a lot you decided that you could endure from your mother, but you weren't willing to expose your kids to it, obviously. So up until this time where you saw the harm that she might pose to your kids, what was your relationship with her like?
That's a great question. I think it was, I guess, like a lot of work for me. um, you know, she can be really fun and charming and like a super like goofball. But she has borderline personality disorder, so there's like this a sudden emergency will occur for her, and then it's like everything falls apart. For many years she had been in and out of therapy. She has substance use issues, so for a while before we did I completely cut off my relationship with her. She had been not using, I think, substances, and she'd been doing pretty well and being pretty playful most of the time. And we had kind of like a setup where if she started to get upset, I would be like, it looks like you need to take a break, and then she would go and take a break. So it's very much like I was just operating as the parent as I always had.
Mhm.
And that worked because I had 3 kids, so she was just like another one, and she was living with me during that period for a brief time. The pandemic was very difficult for her and for my brother, and everybody just sort of moved to Seattle where I live right before the pandemic, so it was just like kind of a disaster. And I did bring her into my home, which I, very much regret now, but, yeah.
Well, it sounds like it was a hopeful move, which I admire and I wanna talk about a little bit more, but it also sounds like there were good times between you. And I wonder if that's partly because it sounds like she did admit there was a problem that stemmed from her behavior that she, in a way, took some responsibility for. You mentioned how one of the things that she would raise or one of the problems in your relationship was her sort of demanding that, or claiming that you didn't love her enough or you didn't show her love in the right way, and you go into that in your essay, which I highly recommend everyone read. Um, do you think that that years leading up to your current estrangement, um, as you said, she lived with you a couple of times and you set boundaries for that, that she agreed to, and your therapist supported. And so I'm wondering, while, as I said, I really admire your commitment to trying to maintain that relationship with your mom, can you walk me through sort of what you hoped, how you hoped that might work, and what your therapist advised? Like, why did they think that this was possible?
Right. Yeah, it's funny because, I think that part of it is that their therapist only tell them, and it didn't really occur to me that my mom was a serious problem until, like, my mid-30s. She felt that my mom was reaching this point where some people with borderline and sort of start to become more insightful, and that we had, like, a management system. It was really effective, and harmful things aren't all bad all the time.
Yeah, yeah. I think that's really the key thing, and I'm so impressed, at least that your mother was willing to, try this with the boundaries and with that, admission that she needed boundaries and you needed the boundaries and that you were willing to try it. I think that really says a lot about, the lengths that people will go to try to maintain these relationships in spite of all evidence to the contrary. Um, you mentioned, um, about being a mother yourself. Did you always wanna have a family? And I'm wondering if your mother's, instability contributed in any way to how you think about being a mom or whether you wanted to be a mom.
Yeah, it's I've thought a lot about this as, but when I did, I was, like, 21 when I was pregnant. I was in therapy, like,
Mm.
I wanna understand her, and I wanna understand whether I am like her or not like her, and, if anything, I think, my kids would probably say that I'm more, frank, and I don't request of them anything. I more like my mom in some ways.
Or like you think about how your mom was and actively try to not be like that, even when there might have been some good elements to the way she raised you.
Yeah,
I Of course, in the first season of Bad Mothers, I spoke to lots of women about, why they either wanted to have kids or didn't want to have kids in relation to their experiences with their mom. And the ones who did have children either, um, were terrified of being like their mother or wanted to have children in order to write a new story for themselves and for their family. And so, I guess there's so much wrapped up in that because I imagine when you have a child, you want to lean on your mother for advice and support, and for a lot of us, that might not be a safe place to go for that.
yeah, yeah, she was not my person that I spoke to. I had a friend who had children, like, a year before I did, and she taught me great mother, and, like, she works with, children with, behavioral disabilities. It's called something different in every state, and she's just, like, the most patient person about a lot of different things with parenting, but I really relied on my chosen
Mm,
family and friends. I did My mother-in-law was very helpful, for certain periods. She, um, has her own her own journey, and so when from her son, she disappeared.
right. Okay.
Yes, I did.
You wrote about how
Um,
you and not your younger brother bore the brunt of your mother's episodes, and those were as detailed in the essay that she woke you in the middle of the night to tell you all the ways that she knew you didn't love her. Um, and you thought, that it might be because your mother saw him as the more affectionate of the 2 of you. Beyond the different roles siblings fill in a dysfunctional family, I think that that articulation of your brother being the more affectionate one speaks to the way our culture demands girls be a particular way, right? So if your brother was the more affectionate one, your mother must have seen you as cold and wrong in some way because you were the girl and you should be a certain way. Um, and I think that's so embedded in our culture that we don't even realize it's happening most of the time. Um, and you had to be warm and kind and loving, you explained, to the so much to the degree that your father taught you how to manage your mom's emotions with your facial expressions and your tone of voice. And so I'm wondering if because those ideas are so embedded, not just in your family, but everywhere we look, have you had kind of any version of this rear up in your family? Do you catch yourself expecting certain things of your kids based on their gender?
that's so funny. No expectations of my children. I have been diagnosed with, autism now, and the psychiatrist, this is everything sort of would have fit the
Mm,
criteria of Asperger's in the 90s. And my children are 2 of them are on the spectrum or diagnosed on the spectrum, and one has a genetic, diagnosis that's really just every part of her life. And I think that, part of the way that my brain works is that I don't really understand at all. I don't understand what people are talking about when they have gender expectations. I just don't. It's like a complete blind spot. Like, I understand when people say something is like feminine or masculine if it's like
mm.
those standards, but I don't think that I had that. If anything, like I've realized because they're older, like asked them to like be a certain way because my kids are they're like my oldest is a trans boy who has like extremely long hair and like presents in every different gender every day. Like you wouldn't know if you saw him, you'd have to ask, how do you identify? And like who uses a wheelchair wanted to shave her head the other day and I did it. I was like, well, I waited a while because I was like, I don't want to regret it. But then after she asked like the 10th time, I was like, okay, let's go. Section. I don't expect anything. I've always been very much into like, I'll ask or I don't reciprocate. I'm going to take that note and just verbalize like, I'm here. If I'm here. Like my 11-year-old son has started to hold my hand and walk around, which he had not done for years. And it's like every time we're out, the time we're walking, and that's great. But if he stops, I'm not going to ask him to do it. Weird when people do that to
Mm,
their
mm.
kids.
Well, yeah, I guess that would be along the lines of your mother questioning your affection for her when you were young. And I wonder, do you think I assumed this, but I want to know if you agree. Do you think that your Asperger's would explain why she believed you didn't show affection in your face or actions toward her? Yeah.
I have learned to mask like it's just a part of who I am now. Like that. Like to me, the social aspects of life I was a kid, I would just like watch people and mimic them and, be all kinds of weird. I had a very like intense sensory thing. So I didn't like to be
Mm,
squeezed, like of textures. I've gotten used to things over time, but like, so it's like a lot of stuff was
mm,
going on that she wasn't aware of because it must have been so weird to her to have this kind of like stiff little girl not like hugging
mhm.
back.
I wanted to ask what being a, quote, "good mother" means to you as opposed to a bad mother. So, I assume that's one thing. Are there other, sort of mantras you keep in mind?
I think the biggest one is just like adding value and also just being okay with like screwing up. It's fun.
What the letters I often hear from other women, explaining that they got from their mothers post estrangement or in the midst of estrangement, um, they do sometimes include an apology, but it usually has some sort of explanation, which I think the problem with that is not so much that there's an explanation, but that including the explanation with the apology implies um, that their behavior should be excused and accepted in the future. And what we need as the estranged kids is a promise to try very hard to not behave that way in the future. And I guess that's what's missing from any kind of outreach like this. Was that kind of what you experienced in your mom's letters?
Yeah, and I think that, I told her when the last time I talked to her, I was like, I will talk to you again if you have joined a DBT group and gone consistently for 6 months.
What's a DBT group?
Oh gosh, I'm going to say the acronym wrong, but it's similar to CBT, but DBT is like one of the only therapies that is known to really help people with borderline personality disorder
Okay.
and in a group setting. And
Mhm.
so, so that was, I gave her like a list and it was, DBT group, consistent attendance for a half of a year, personal therapist, stop drinking,
Mhm.
and like, and show me evidence of such in some way,
Yeah.
and, and then like I'll have a conversation. And so the absence of those things in the letters is really amusing to me, honestly.
Mhm.
Like, you know, I also have compassion because, I've spent so much of my life as a mom and I I think that my mom did the same thing. Like she was our Girl Scout leader. She was really creative. She was even really creative with my kids. Like the thing that they would do together is paint rocks and put them all over town. And the rocks that they painted were hysterical because my kids are like the kookiest little kids. Um, like one rock series, my oldest child would write bisexual rights, which I never quite understood. and and it was funny because I saw them painting rocks and they always had like such a delightful time doing it. And I saw the rock and I said, "So if somebody sees that rock, like what response are you hoping for?" And my kid said, "Well, if it's a Karen, she'll just pick it up and throw it in the trash." um, but my mom was just like very accepting, so that she did a lot of work and spent a lot of her time raising us and being with my kids, and to have that just disappear from her life, I'm sure is devastating and frustrating and enraging. And I'm sure I would go through those emotions of my kids after I've like given them, I feel that I have given them or parenting or the family that I've built like my entire youth. um they didn't
Yeah.
want to tell me, I'd be devastated too, but I gave her a list.
Yeah, yeah, I think that's the thing is we can articulate all these things, and I think that in most cases, the our mothers aren't really capable of meeting the things on the list. Like, I think the letters and the outreach to them genuinely feel like they're doing everything they can to repair, and there's just like a block that isn't going through. And I shared this in an essay, years ago, but my mother called me years into our estrangement. And I think like the initial voicemail was something like, just thought I'd call to see how you're doing. Here's my number. Give me a call back. And so I did call her, and she just wanted to like chit chat. She didn't have anything revelatory to say. She didn't apologize. She told me about her two biggest regrets, which were unrelated to our estrangement in any way. And I didn't know what to do with that for a long time until I finally realized that she she doesn't understand or know how to fix our relationship. And I don't think that she sees any responsibility on her part to do that. And that's not something I can teach her. And I guess, you said how painful it would be if you were ever estranged from your own children. Um, and I do feel sadness for my mother's situation now, but I hope that she's really happy. Um, I hope that she's content. But I think the only way to get over that guilt is to understand that it's not our responsibility to fix.
Yeah. And I super agree with that. I mean, as you were talking, I was what was I thinking about? I like something that you said was let me see if I can catch it. The thought is like moving through. Well, I will say, like, I super agree with that. I mean, that's been like my journey to, recognize that it's not my job to help people in ways that you know they could help themselves.
Mhm.
Like, we can't just like magically like put our hands in people's brains and fix them. Oh yeah, that's what it was. I For me and my mom, and I think for a lot of people that I've talked to, it really comes down to a mutual respect. And I think that, like, my mom does not respect my request. She does not see me as much of a person as she is, because if she has a request of me, she expects it to be done. Else
Mhm.
she will throw a tantrum or do whatever, right? Like when we were talking. But if I have a request, even if it's the easiest request, a DVT group actually sounds great. Like, how fun to sit in a group of people and like become better together.
Mhm.
Why would you be resistant of that
Yeah.
ever? But it's because I'm asking for it. It's like, well, you're just trying to control me. And
Mhm.
it's this way of dismissing the validity of my request and like my adult brain and my humanity. And I think that that
Mhm.
often happens. It's like the estranged child is like, well, if you do this, then I will feel more safe and comfortable with you. And the parent is like, well, why would I do that? That's dumb.
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah.
Um, and we
Exactly.
can't change that. That's their choice. That's their choice to minimize and dismiss us. Okay.
Mhm.
Like,
And yeah, and I think it's our choice then to repeatedly, it has to be our choice to repeatedly remind ourselves that this is this is not our responsibility. This isn't something that we can fix. We can only control what we do in a painful situation, which is to take ourselves out of it.
mhm.
Um, One of the anxieties that I still carry that I attribute to my lifelong responsibility for my mother's feelings and my sister's well-being is a worry about the safety of anyone in my care. Um, I've gotten over taking care the compulsion to take care of my sisters and to offer unsolicited advice and to worry about them all the time. I worked on that in my late 20s, early 30s, and I think we're good now. I think they would say the same. But unfortunately, my husband is now considered in my brain, in my care. He doesn't think that. And our dog is in my care. And that means that I channel all my worries, anything that could possibly go wrong or hurt them. I am trying to protect them from that all the time. And that's something I'm really trying hard to let go of because it's a burden for me and for my husband and possibly for Annie. I don't know how she feels about it. But you explained in your piece for the cut that one of the lasting impacts of your mom's insistence that you don't love her enough is an anxiety you feel about how you treat people that you do care about. So can you tell us how that's going?
Yeah, so in my relationships, in my adult relationships, I feel like there's a distinct difference between adult relationships and my relationships with my kids because I don't expect them to give to me as
Mhm.
I give to them. It is like they are growing and learning, and my expectation from them is just that they become who they are going to be.
Yeah.
But in my adult relationships, whenever there's a problem, I do immediately assume that I've done something or I've lacked in some way. Like I haven't done enough, usually care. And it's very intellectual. Like I don't start to go into like a guilt spiral. Though certainly did in my early 20s. Like that was a big thing for me, is just like feeling guilty and then being like, why do I feel so guilty? But now it's just like an thing. Sorry about that noise. Um, where I'm just immediately, assessing the situation and trying to figure out what I've lacked and how I can fix it. And I really
Mhm.
have to work on that. I do have two therapists. One who is like my talk therapist who specializes in people with borderline personality disorder, and she has told me for years that I do not have any signs of cluster B personality disorders, but I am still keeping her around because I don't trust the future. And I feel like I'm just going to wake up one day and like my kids are going to say the same things to me that I said to my mom. And that's like the nightmare that I want to avoid. And then I have an EMDR therapist. So I have a lot of strategies to reroute this kind of thinking. But that wrong thinking is very present for me all the time. And it, funny enough, does manifest more with my dogs than anything else. Um,
Mhm.
rescue dogs, and so they have many problems. They're like a wreck. And and like my we our newest pug, she had to have one eye removed. And her mange that she had when she was like rescued by the rescue returned, and I felt like, oh my gosh, what did I wasn't I was I not feeding her enough? Like I like obsessed over it for like 3 days,
Mhm.
and I was like, I literally am not in control of mites on her skin and her immune system. I'm not in control. It's not my
Yeah.
fault. Like, let it go. And
Yeah.
she doesn't care. She's just got some missing hair, you know?
Yes, that's the thing, that I think helps to remind myself and that my dad is actually really good at reminding me about is that dogs do not blame us for anything, and they don't have concerns like we do. So that's a bit of a relief, but I wonder if you I wanna go back for a second too, you mentioned about keeping the therapist who specializes in borderline personality disorder. Um, do you think that you would be as concerned about, showing any signs of borderline if you didn't have kids? Or do you think that's more a worry you carry because you don't want to expose your kids to that?
Wow, I've never thought of it about that, but definitely my inclination is definitely it has to do with my kids.
Mhm.
Um, I do not have problematic friendships. Like my mom, she gets rid of people. Like I had to get rid of her. She was bad, bad
Mhm.
news or whatever, like, and that has always been so funny to me. Even when I was a kid, I was like, I thought almost that it was a joke because it sounded like such a caricature of
Mhm.
experience. Um, but I've never, like, I think I've broken up with one or two friends in my entire life, and those both of those one or two happened in high school.
Yeah.
You know, like, it's just, like, friendships are easy for me, relationships are easy for me, so I don't think I would be worried at all. It's completely, like, an unhinged, totally not rooted in reality fear because I'm a mom.
Mhm. Yeah, yeah. I mean, I can understand the concern. I mean, based on the conversations I've had with lots of other moms is that they are afraid of carrying forward any of the the behaviors that they picked up from their own moms that they know to be harmful, but are, I guess they're just in us now, and we have to learn that they're not normal, right?
Yeah.
Like when I was growing up, if I did anything that made my mom unhappy, her go-to was the silent treatment. And like I knew based on how it felt that it was extremely painful, but I didn't put together that doing that to someone else obviously is wrong, harmful. Um, I don't think I did it so much because I just can't stand the conflict. I can't stand like knowing that something is unresolved. So I wouldn't be good at the silent treatment anyway. But it took me a long time to realize that it's like an active thing a person does to hurt another person that they care about. And that's a hard thing to wrap your head around. But I could imagine that um, it's easy to pick up those things and repeat them if you lived with it for so long.
It seems like it, and it's hard to know, right? Like, my brother has a lot of similar behaviors to my mom. He's always kind of been like a reflection of her, and I've always kind of been a reflection of my dad, so I feel really lucky that that happened, 'cause
Mm.
I wasn't in control of that, like, that was just what I glommed onto as a kid. But, yeah, I mean, I think the tough thing is just, like, it seems like this cycle happens. Like, my mom was trying really hard to be, super loving and as she believed her mother to be cold. Um, my grandma Joyce, her mother, is one of my favorite people I've ever known. She was awesome. She was amazing, and, like, yeah, she was, like, deadpan. And my mom hated it. I mean, it would make her totally freak out. She just wanted more affection from her.
Yeah.
And, so you can kind of see how she then, like, overloaded us with affection and expected the same thing in return,
Mhm.
and she was trying in her own way, I think, to fix what she felt was her mother's, problems or mistakes.
Mhm.
And in doing so, I kind of created somebody I'm a lot like her mom. Like, I'm very deadpan
Yeah.
most of the time. Like, sometimes my kids say stuff and I'm like, "That's not true." And I after that, or like, I'm not in the mood for this right now. Like, I'll talk to you about this later." Like, I'm like, and I'm like, "Oh, I'm totally, like, vibing with my grandma right now. I need to soften a bit."
Yeah, I mean, I think that it's really sad when a parent doesn't see that, what's special or unique in their child as special and rather a problem that needs to be fixed or changed in some way. And it just reminded me of I was just in the States visiting my family recently, and my sister Vanessa had a 4th of July party, and I met a bunch of her friends, and so many of them told me how much they appreciate this particular part of her character, which is she will always tell you exactly what she thinks. She'll tell you the truth no matter what. And that can read as blunt or cruel to some people, I think, who don't appreciate that level of honesty, I guess. But I do. My other sisters do. We know, I think there's a safety in always knowing where you stand with another person and not ever having to wonder, especially when you come from the history or the background that we have with our mom, which was always, you know, is everything okay? Is she mad? Did somebody do something? Maybe she's mad because she has been quiet, or maybe she's mad because she didn't do, this thing that she normally does, and always having to wonder. That sort of trepidation is, I mean, especially as a child, it's really terrifying. But as I grew older, I found that not knowing what other people really think or what they feel is stressful for me. And so it was really nice to see that her other friends appreciated that in her, the way that we all do. And I guess it's just sad that, not all parents can see those things as good and special in their own kids.
Yeah, it's really strange to me, and to me, it's just also this, like, very, like, good evidence for a chosen family, and just, like, how important that is. I've noticed that with my mom and with other parents of friends who are in similar situations, that there's just, like, a lack of flexible thinking on their part. Like, it's like they have this fixed idea of their child that they developed very early, and they cannot imagine a different person, even
Mhm.
though decades may have passed since that idea was formed. And it's always been very validating to me, that nobody in my life has had the same complaints about me as my mother. Um, it's like I'm always looking for it and I'm like ready for it, and certainly there have been times when something sounded like that, especially when I was in my early 20s with like, a boyfriend or something.
Mhm.
Um, and something might sound like that and I'm like, "Oh my god, you're accusing me of the same thing," but it was usually just me projecting and just being really afraid, that that was true, that I was a secret sociopath who like didn't know how to love anyone, which is just nuts. Um, but I do think that like it's seeking friendships. Friendships, I think, are the most important relationships in our lives as women, and I would die on that hill. I don't think our romantic
Mm.
relationships are anything compared to our friendships, and I don't think that our the family that raised us is is anything compared to friendships because we are developing who we want to be with someone else also developing who they want to be.
Mm.
And I just think it's so valuable to to have those and to be seen and feel seen for who we want to be.
Mm. Yeah. Well, that's beautiful.
Yeah, and it's so lame that like our we have parents that like won't even try, but also
Mm.
amazing. Like when I hear about a parent who will do that, who will be a friend to their adult child, I am like blown away. To me, it's like magic and fairies and princesses. I'm like,
Mm.
wow, you're like in your 60s and you were willing to change your perception of your child. That's great. Amazing.
Yeah. Well, I
Mhm.
guess, yeah, that's what we all want and need on a most basic level from our parents is to just be accepted for who we are. That's I mean, they're supposed to be the ones who provide that unconditionally for